Potter's big screen sorcery had the world spellbound.
It is a magical thing that they've created.
Everybody loved it.
Wicked. 2 films in, the students had become the masters.
We're settled, we know what we're doing.
The Harry Potter world is expanding.
But we had a long way to go before graduation.
Prepping, posting, and shooting almost continuously.
It just couldn't be done any faster.
We had people working around the clock.
And we all soon found there was still a lot to learn.
Everyone's operating up here.
And dropping out early was our director.
The load on Chris Columbus's shoulders was enormous.
The man who'd helmed 2 successful Potter films
I think there was some family pressure for him to go home.
was ready to hang up his hat.
I think he was tired.
So sorry, dozed off. What have I missed?
The kids were very upset that Chris left.
But Warner's needed more than a new director.
Don't worry about all the sort of magic, clever stuff.
They needed a new brand of magic.
To make it grittier.
The Harry Potter franchise was under the spell of a new dark magic.
It was very brave.
We even had a different Dumbledore.
What the hell is he going to do with this?
I think you just have to believe that this is going to work.
Hogwarts had changed forever.
Everything we were seeing coming out was quite dark.
Would Harry Potter survive?
I'm not sure a human being can actually do this.
For the 3rd film in the franchise, Harry Potter was not only changing direction, but changing directors.
Chris wasn't coming back for Prisoner of Azkaban.
After those first 3 years, he was really tired. He just said, I need a break.
And perhaps in this case, change would be a good thing.
It's very healthy on a franchise to have a different director, particularly with the change of mood of film 3.
The darkness that comes later in those stories would have played differently with the world that Chris had created.
3 books into the series, the mood was becoming distinctly different.
They were beginning to become a little bit more serious as the kids grew up. Their themes were a little bit more intense.
Uncharted territory.
Lumos Maxima!
Amidst the childlike wonder of the first 2 films.
You needed somebody who could walk in and actually go, yes, I know what to do.
And so quickly, a shortlist emerged of knowledgeable directors who knew what to do.
Maybe it was going to be Kenneth Branagh.
That is the question.
Branagh was no stranger to Harry, having appeared in The Chamber of Secrets. Also on the shortlist,
They did toy with Guillermo del Toro for a while, which people got very excited about.
but we would not be seeing Del Toro's famously creepy monsters at Hogwarts.
And then suddenly it was Alfonso.
Alfonso Cuarón had done some work with Warner Bros. Before that.
And with that, the shortlist was down to 1, Alfonso Cuarón.
Remember David Heyman had seen Alfonso's film, was it Tambien?
Y tu mama tambien?
That's the fella. And that's how he got the job.
Like Harry Potter, this erotic road movie centred on a trio.
I thought a fantastic film, but whatever to do with Harry, so adult and sexual.
Really? For a children's film?
That guy's directing this? What the hell are we going to be doing?
But let's not get distracted. Warners weren't dwelling on Cuarón's penchant for sizzling love triangles. They were thinking about this.
Why don't they come to life in front of us so we can see them?
Because it's magic.
A Little Princess, which was centered around a bunch of children.
The Little Princess was a whimsical story of a girl sent to a boarding school.
Okay, so that totally makes sense. That has elements of darkness, the boarding school, a little bit, the headmistress isn't that nice, so that kind of makes sense, doesn't it?
Becky, you will remain locked in your room for the entire day tomorrow without meals.
But mostly it was Cuarón's imaginative take on literature that was most relevant to him taking on Harry Potter. But
he hadn't done anything this big.
Fortunately, Chris Columbus would still be hovering as an executive producer.
If you need me, I'll come down. If there's a problem, I'll come down. He is the kind of producer who wants to, this is your movie now.
With the wand passed from one director to the other, Alfonso Cuarón began wielding his newfound power further than ever before into the shadows.
Add a little bit more seriousness, and a slightly darker tone.
And maybe even right up to the edge.
Yeah, sort of edgy, which is a weird word to use in the Harry Potter franchise, but it felt gritty and dark and exciting.
After all, despite all that magic, for Harry and co, things were starting to get, well, real.
As the characters began to grapple with more personal problems and more issues of the anxieties we talk about that come with adolescence.
And just as real-life themes began to emerge for Potter, real life forced changes on the franchise.
They burst into flame when it is time for them to die.
The death of Richard Harris before the release of The Chamber of Secrets left producers with no choice but to go against the actors' expressed wishes.
Don't recast me!
And that was, I think, the last words that Chris heard from Richard Harris.
To replace the man that was the gold standard of Dumbledore.
You'd be hard-pushed to find somebody who said that Richard Harris wasn't how they pictured Dumbledore to be.
But yet they had no choice. And in stepped Michael Gambon with some rather big shoes to fill.
I think it must have been a lot of pressure for him taking over from Richard.
A word of caution.
When Gambon came on, we knew it was going to be different.
Welcome to another year at Hogwarts.
He was an interesting person to work with, was Gambon. You will hear many stories about Gambon, and most of them are true. Unbelievable, but true.
And we'll get to some of those stories. But first, they had some new characters to cast.
If you were a British celebrity that was not in Harry Potter, you were trying desperately to get into Harry Potter.
Trying and succeeding was Emma Thompson.
You must look beyond.
What a load of rubbish.
As the fortune-telling Sybil Trelawney.
You, boy, is your grandmother quite well?
I think so.
I wouldn't be so sure of that.
Along with the UK's preeminent character actor extraordinaire, Gary Oldman.
That is Sirius Black, that is.
Gary Oldman as Sirius Black is perfect. This guy's got a backstory. This guy's messed up. This guy has been in prison. He's a little nuts.
Are you going to kill me, Harry?
Despite it being a smaller part, it's not a throwaway part at all, and they really needed somebody who could take a meaty role.
I'm pleased to welcome Professor R.J. Lupin.
And a new face in the Hogwarts staff room was provided by David Thewlis.
Just a gentle, soft-spoken, lovely man.
The injection of fresh blood added decades of experience to the core cast, who, although still young, were already veterans in their own right.
They'd been through 300 days of shooting with Chris. That's like 6 movies for normal actors.
A significant chunk of their lives had already been consumed by Harry Potter.
I was there every day, Monday to Friday. I'd leave my house at 8:30. I'd probably get back at about 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. And you commit to that as a 10-year-old.
The adolescent cast members had grown up on Harry Potter.
It was so exciting what we were doing, and I really mean this, like, it was so exciting. And it was fun, but obviously it takes up a big part of your life.
In fact, life at Hogwarts had virtually replaced regular schooling for the principals.
I do think, like, it was completely natural for all of us to have missing elements of what, I guess, a normal 13-year-old's life would look like. Parties, friends, that sort of thing.
But cast members were continuing their education, as actors at least, thanks to the tutelage of their new director.
I remember him being the first director really that I had worked with who expected more thought process. You know, he wanted me to make decisions and have ideas and thoughts. In the real world, you know, you don't finish what you're saying and then it just shuts off. You know, that doesn't happen. He made you think about things like that. It was a challenge, but an exciting challenge.
Now the challenges of adulthood were becoming part of the job.
So they could begin to take some direction, just pushing them more, challenging them a little bit more.
Alfonso was a bit more like, you're an actor, how are you going to do this? But I think everyone was ready for it.
Chris Columbus knew how to almost trick us into acting. But now, as the years passed, Alfonso Cuarón was directing well-trained actors.
Alfonso really wanted, like, the actors to have a say in how they think their character would wear their school uniform. So with Hermione, she would have, like, her tie properly done, top button done up. But then if you looked at, like, Seamus Finnegan, he had, like, top button undone, short tie. And I think maybe he did sort of think more of how 13-year-old, active, young girl would dress. That felt right.
Excuse me, I'm head boy.
And in the case of Percy, Chris Rankin had some ideas himself, very befitting of a head boy.
One thing I wanted to do that I was really clear on, because it was a fun moment for me from the book, was Percy is so proud of becoming head boy. That is such a big thing for him. And we had the costume fitting for that, and we're there with our fezzes and our, sort of looking like the Weasleys on holiday. And I said to the costume designer, Percy has his head boy badge at this point. She's like, oh no, we do not need to bother with that. So no, we need the head boy badge. We need to do that. We desperately need to do that. And that was a triumph. That was a victory for me.
It was clear Chris was squeezing every little bit of business out of the character he could.
Alfonso spoke to me and said, well, Percy's this sort of nerdy, geeky guy. I like the idea that he's got greasy hair and oily skin, and he's a bit spotty, and he's imperfect. Funnily enough, on the first 2 movies, the hair and makeup team had spent money and time and effort giving me so many different products to try and clear my teenage spotty face up. And then we got to Azkaban. They then had to spend like 45 minutes every morning smearing pus-filled whiteheads onto my forehead and things like that.
As the kids began to grow and change, even the familiar spaces of Hogwarts underwent a metamorphosis.
Because the story was a lot darker in tone, I think that the look of the sets got darker as well.
As long shadows loomed over Hogwarts, the question was, would Alfonso Cuarón get lost in the dark? As darkness loomed at Hogwarts, it would be easy to get lost in the shadows. But there was someone who could safely lead the way through the hallowed halls.
Hogwarts changed on every single film.
And art director Gary Tompkins had been there all the way.
There's a lot of my input there, particularly on the Hogwarts model.
Hogwarts, the home of Harry Potter, had changed just like the students it housed.
There were many architectural features that changed from film to film.
And Gary's brief changed with it.
When we started on Harry Potter 1, Joe hadn't actually written the last books, so we couldn't possibly design all the things into the castle that would be required for forthcoming films.
Originally based on the Romanesque architecture of Durham Cathedral in the northeast of England, Cuarón was leaning more towards a Gothic look for The Prisoner of Azkaban.
He went for a very kind of darker, sinister look, and so we sort of inherited the model. We really retextured it, replaced a lot of stuff. All the roofs on the area that's based on Durham Cathedral were removed, and we replaced those with really tall, thin spires, so that in aerial shots that had a kind of a menacing, spiky feel to it.
It's the only production I've ever been on where continuity can be taken with a bit of a pinch of salt, because you can say, well, it's magic, of course it changes.
Cuarón's instructions to model builders like Jose Granell were simple.
Make it a little bit more dramatic, and that was it. It was, right, we went back and we started to have a bit more fun with it.
Hogwarts started to feel less like this sort of warm, golden, glowing castle that it was in the first 2 movies, and more like there were cobwebs in the corners and shadows. There's going to be things to be scared of in a castle.
We don't know whether it's safe or not.
If teenage anxiety could be physically manifested,
they take the shape of whatever a particular person fears the most.
It would surely take the shape of Harry Potter's new villains.
The Dementors of Azkaban.
Adding that at the time when the protagonists hit adolescence really did add a darker, more sinister edge to it.
It was clear that The Prisoner of Azkaban was a much darker movie. And for those of us on set, the mood wasn't much better.
It was a new crowd, it was a new crew on the ship.
And it was like Snape had taken over from Dumbledore, which is...
ridiculous!
With Alfonso, there may be some people that think he wasn't the easiest of the directors to work with.
Very particular.
He's demanding.
And everyone just needed a sort of moment to get that settled.
The crew needed to find their feet with the new boss.
He was hard work to work with.
I had a meeting with him. One of the producers came to the meeting, and I said, I don't want to seem rude. I said, but would you mind just leaving Alfonso and I to talk? And Alfonso watched the producer leave. He said, hey, man, that's good. He really liked that. And I said, well, you obviously never had a second unit. I'm sure you don't want one. I can tell you, you do need one. I said, because very few people have filmed the way we film. and how involved it is, and the hours with the kids and this and that, and it worked very well.
Peter would remain in charge of second unit.
The second unit was the place to be on Harry Potter.
And while the new director was bringing the changes,
he had ideas for every sequence, very clear ideas on things.
There was no doubt Cuarón had a clear vision, and he soon found his crew had the requisite eye for detail. Emphasis on eye.
We were looking at storyboards. It was the Hogwarts Express, and suddenly the rain turned into eyes.
Bloody hell! What's happening?
The Dementors are coming and the sky is filled with eyeballs.
It's like, wow, that's really weird. That's a really surreal thing.
Even Cuarón was confused when presented with his surreal storyboards.
He picked this up, he looked at it, he said, "Why are there eyeballs all over the sky?" And they said, "You said then the rain turns into eyes." And he said, "No, I said the rain turns into ice." There was a lot of laughing. They'd put a lot of work into those eyes.
Sure, not everyone had their ice on the ball, but Cuarón was willing and able to do something Chris Columbus was very cautious about, adding flourishes that were not in the book.
Hey, wouldn't it be great if the choir were holding toads? And they did the bass notes. He also came up with ideas as he went. Could you make the monster book of monsters? And it was like, well, okay, we'll try and do that then. Suddenly you've got a whole factory making books, and you think, I'm making books. How did that come about?
With Cuarón, the devil was in the detail, especially when it came to the film's most mysterious demons.
The Dementors was something he was very keen to sort of develop.
His description was very clear.
And these devils would bedevil his art department.
This dark death feel to it, this macabre sense of flowing fabrics.
The fact that they float was kind of difficult to achieve.
It became clear that this was going to have to be a fully digital character.
That magician was the man who'd just been promoted to visual effects supervisor, after having done such a good job with the spiders on the last movie.
My name's Tim Burke.
For Tim, creating digital costumes for Dementors was an entirely new kind of creepy-crawly.
Doing cloth back then was very complex.
It was figuring out how to get that complex animation that had tremendous personality to it, yet felt almost random.
Ironically, it was back to the practical drawing board first.
He wanted to explore how cloth moved in water, and then played around with reversing the footage and overcranking and undercranking. And something that we then took across to the CG and used as reference for how the cloth itself would move. And it took the computer wizards at ILM to figure out how to do that, basically.
That's Industrial Light and Magic, who'd brought Dobby to life in the last movie. But for the Prisoner of Azkaban, one of the most difficult characters to create...
Exactly what is that? That run is a hippogriff.
...would be Buckbeak, the hippogriff.
A mixture of, bird and horse.
Also a mixture of CG and practical. And as usual, as it comes to mythical, horsey creatures...
I don't want to do the snake, I want to do the unicorn.
Nick Dudman's hand was aloft.
Oh, I'd love to build a flying hippogriff.
And so that's exactly what Nick and the team did.
They started building the full-size Buckbeak.
Building Buckbeak took a huge chunk of the production time because we basically have to build something that's going to look good from any angle.
Every feather had to be put in. A phenomenal piece of work.
But no matter how much it looked the part, mechanical Buckbeak couldn't play it.
The fully mechanical one, which was insane, it only had cables coming out of one hoof. Other than that, it just stood there.
But this mythical flying horse bird needed to flap and gallop across the skies of Hogwarts. And for that task, it was back to the computer.
Yeah, Buckbeak was a big challenge. When Alfonso looked me in the eye and said, "Can you do it?" I said, "Yes, we can do it." Again, big leap of faith.
There was yet another mythical creature for the team to bring to life, the werewolf. And this time, Nick Dudman was confident he could pull it off completely practically.
And they thought they could create the werewolf as a practical effect in a suit, a man wearing stilts.
The design was really unusual.
He's very willowy, tall, thin.
But after careful constructions for each stage...
You know what? We can make all these bits.
Bits that would need to come together in time for the werewolf's fast approaching on-screen debut.
I'm not sure a human being can actually do this.
It was 2003 and filming on The Prisoner of Azkaban was well underway. And years into filming the Harry Potter franchise, Leavesden Studios had come a long way from its humble beginnings.
It was a dump.
Diabolical.
So run down.
No, it was a nightmare.
Or maybe not. Nonetheless, for Harry Potter's now teenage cast, it was a second home.
As children and as older teenagers were always desperate to drive the golf buggies, cast were absolutely forbidden to get behind the steering wheel. And that is because of Michael Gambon and Johnny Depp on Sleepy Hollow, because they wrote off 2 golf buggies. That is why we were no longer allowed anywhere near the golf buggies. Michael Gambon, he was so glorious and he always had such wonderful stories to tell. I think most of them were lies.
Well, Michael Gambon was a master actor, after all.
I remember us having discussions about what accent he would have.
But just hours from shooting, Gambon was still thinking about his predecessor.
Well, the first morning he came in, he said, should I try doing it Irish, Dave, as a kind of tribute to Richard? And I said, surely you've come here as your first morning's filming, you must have thought of that, you know.
The new professor would have to find his feet one step at a time.
Is meaningless to those who've forgotten how to listen.
There was more of a wicked side to Dumbledore.
I always refer to him, Michael Gambon, as Battle Dumbledore.
Good luck.
You needed that danger that Gambon brought.
I did express concerns about your appointment of Professor.
We had a scene where myself, Alan Rickman, and Mike Gambon were patrolling, like late at night, waiting for the Dementors.
Oh, I'm quite convinced the castle is safe.
At one point, the sound of a fart came from one of the beds. A few seconds later, another fart noise came out. And after about 4, everybody was laughing, and they were all pointing at Daniel. And Michael Gambon had placed this electronic fart machine underneath his sleeping bag without telling him. Daniel realised it was him. He just jumped out of his sleeping bag and said, Gambon!
While Gambon provided the tricks on set, Alfonso Cuarón would bring the magic. As in, actual, real magic.
He said, I want to have real magic in this scene. And everyone was quiet, like, there is no real magic?
But what about real magicians?
He goes, but I want real magic in this scene. He goes, I want all the extras in the pub to be magicians.
This wasn't just unbridled enthusiasm.
And everybody is doing something magical so that we don't use visual effects at all.
He wanted to keep little magic things happening while an actor would be playing a scene. Something would be going on behind them or in front of them, just to keep the whole screen looking interesting.
The director's sleight of hand worked.
In an age where anything is possible with digital effects, to actually employ real magic is a pretty cool thing.
You know, things that were unnecessary but just added that extra level of realism to the magic that was around us.
It also helped create magic of a different kind for the adolescent cast.
It gave us better performances, for sure.
Harry, open the door.
But there was no sleight of hand when it came to Aunt Marge.
The big thing for us was doing Aunt Marge.
When Aunt Marge,
What are you smirking at?
became the subject of the young wizard's wrath.
Shut up! Shut up!
It was all practical. There's no digital stuff in it at all.
She needed to be blown up, literally.
I was very worried. I thought, oh, this could look terrible.
She had a fat suit, but we also made an enormous full-body latex inflating suit that she wore.
It was a complex rig that literally we fired compressed air into at high speed and it just inflated up.
A process that put the squeeze on actress Pam Ferris.
We quickly realised that when you inflate a giant balloon around somebody's torso, your body kind of suffers the compression. So when we first fired it up, it was a bit like, do something. We basically had to make a little cage around her torso so it would stop the thing actually pushing against her and actually inflate outwards. We just kind of go.
It was quite good fun to do. Maybe not for her, but for the crew.
But the problem with practical effects is they have to obey the laws of physics. And physics would make or break one of the Prisoner of Azkaban's favourite vehicles, the triple-decker night bus.
What you doing down there?
I fell over.
What you fell over for?
I didn't do it on purpose.
Well, come on then.
Plan is to build a 3-storey bus based on a 1950s London bus, which we did by cutting up 2 London buses, putting the 2 decks off one bus onto the top of the first deck of a second bus.
But there's a reason triple-decker buses only appear in Harry Potter.
We had to put into the base of the chassis 6 tons of steel cod weight to give it stability at the bottom so that it was more stable going around corners and couldn't tip over. We then had to look at the challenges of filming in London.
Limited to night shoots in just a small section of the city's square mile, London's sprawling public transport network wouldn't be relevant here.
Because you can't drive the bus into London, and you couldn't drive it between sets in London because it was too high to go under any bridges.
Nobody wanted to lose the top half of the bus.
So every time we moved the bus, we'd have to take it apart and do it all really quickly because it was all night shooting and obviously you can't waste the time.
Second unit director Peter MacDonald had a headache, the size of a bus.
It was probably the toughest sequence we did. I mean, we had stunt drivers driving it, but you see it lean over as it goes around corners, you think, oh, shit, you know.
You get in.
To capture Harry Potter's famous night bus, second unit director Peter MacDonald commandeered the streets of London.
Probably the toughest sequence we did.
To create something London already has in spades, slow-moving traffic.
The difficulty was really to try and make the bus look fast. So what we had to do, the camera ran at quite a slow speed, more than we normally do, to speed up the bus by at least 2 to 3 times. But then every other car's got to go 15, 20 miles an hour to make the bus look fast.
It was no dream gig for the stunt drivers.
We were just creeping along the road while this bus zips past.
This slow dance was necessary to avoid the top-heavy bus capsizing.
Because it was literally leaning like that, you know.
And obviously when they speeded it up for the film, it looks like the cars are doing 30 miles an hour and the bus is doing 90 miles an hour.
This scene wouldn't be complete without Cuarón adding his own special touch. At the very last minute, of course.
Suddenly, you know, he wanted a shrunken head in the bus that has to talk.
Take her away, Ian.
Yeah, take it away, Ernie.
What? Where was that in the book? Was that in the book?
Cuarón had stepped onto treacherous ground because nowhere in the book is there a shrunken head on the bus.
You think he's taken leave of his senses. Then the next thing, actually, it's really cool and it's a good beat and it works, and we built it.
Certainly one of the best sequences that I was involved with.
Escaping Leavesden Studios, location shoots for the cast were like a stand-in for the school camps they couldn't attend.
We went up to Scotland on location and we filmed there, I think, for about 5 weeks. And it was truly like just, I think, my favourite memories.
Production designer Stuart Craig was in his element, in the elements.
One of the things that Stuart always says, he says, my favourite is building a set on location, because then you have nature doing all the heavy lifting, you've got all the beauty of a natural environment, but you've also got exactly your set. So that's where I think, you know, Hagrid's hut up in Scotland worked beautifully well.
Even if the production designer's dream was a crew member's nightmare.
It was a spectacular location. It was a horrendous place to film. They were up a mountain. It was pretty horrible weather.
In the Scottish Highlands, one false move could throw everything into disarray.
I'm glad I wasn't at that shoot.
Well, I was there doubling Hermione, as was David doubling Daniel.
Good punch.
But on one icy day in the Highlands, David took on a far more important role, when Malfoy copped one in the face from Hermione.
I was there just making sure the distance between the two of them was safe so she didn't actually clock Tom in the face.
Hermione punches him. And I remember just throwing the most non-believable punch you could. I've never punched anyone, obviously, before in my life, and still haven't, so, like, throwing a punch to me was, like, so foreign.
But Emma Watson had no troubles at all.
I think when you see it in the film, it's got a bit of conviction.
That felt good.
Well, Malfoy did deserve it, let's be honest. But I wasn't the only double failing to land a punch. Daniel's double, David Holmes, was having struggles of his own.
Come on, we're coming out the back door. Go!
I messed up my timing for the shot where there was 2 Harrys in frame. That exact shot, we obviously needed a double and a stunt double, or 2 Harrys, so I was one of them. It was the one gap in the clouds that we needed to get the shot done. I went too early, the gap in the clouds closed up, couldn't get the shot. And because my timing was wrong, it meant the crew had to stay there all weekend and then get that shot on a Monday. So there's a certain crew member that got me very drunk and encouraged me to break into the hotel swimming pool for a late night skinny dip. So yeah. Do you know how they made me pay for it? It's my knuckles that get pecked by the crow when they're releasing Buckbeak.
Now, speaking of Buckbeak, when the time came for Nick Dudman and the practical animatronic team's glorious moment to shine, well, merely getting the puppets on set proved challenging.
Couldn't actually get it up the hillside on a vehicle.
Okay, come on. He did get to make one triumphant flight.
I think they helicoptered it in the end.
But for visual effects supervisor Tim Berg, creating digital Buckbeak was hardly any easier than wrangling the practical bird.
I was confident we could do the animation, but the technical aspects of creating a flocked, feathered creature and then controlling all the feathers and doing the dynamics on the feathers, it was a massive challenge.
The biggest challenge for Tim was not animating the bird.
It was very difficult to make him look like he was actually on the creature and interacting with the creature.
It was putting Harry on it.
And there was many times where we were having to cut his hands out and reanimate them to give the illusion that his hands were interacting with the wings.
A problem lessened by some simple hands-free choreography. The recurring theme of flight in Harry Potter continued with the Dementors.
Because they're flying, they're not really interacting directly with anybody, so actually filming a scene like that is not too difficult.
Sirius!
But always ready to bring things back down to earth was John Richardson's practical effects.
I was kicking myself for opening my big mouth.
When it came to putting the Dementors on ice in the final showdown at the frozen lake, John had an idea he knew his director would love.
I thought it'd be really good for what was needed for the film if we did it with real ice.
That's ice.
Why are there eyeballs?
Not eyes.
Normally, for a frozen lake, we coat them with wax.
Wax doesn't require freezing.
So I talked Alfonso into real ice.
But what John had in mind would require special permission, because freezing the set wouldn't be cheap.
We bought in an ice rink company and we created an ice lake. It added a reality to the scene that may not have been there otherwise.
The crew were in complete control of the Harry Potter set, but only one person had total control over the Harry Potter story. And J.K. Rowling was about to change the script on everyone with the release of her 5th book.
It came out that a character dies.
The 5th book in the Harry Potter series, Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, dropped in June of 2003.
We had to wait 3 years for this.
And bookstores were ready for the onslaught. By now, the launch of a new Harry Potter book resembled a film premiere, as eager readers anxiously counted down to midnight to get their hands on a copy. And as if readers weren't exuberant enough, J.K. Rowling had an incredible and yet darker still twist for this book. And it landed like a bombshell on the set of the 3rd movie, The Prisoner of Azkaban.
It came out that J.K. Rowling had killed off a character.
Everyone on set had the same question.
Who's it going to be? Somebody's getting their contract cut.
The race was immediately on to speed read the new book and solve the mystery.
I'm in hair and makeup. My hair station was next to Gary Oldman's station. He just comes in and he was like, oh, it's me. They kill me off, Sirius dies. And I remember just being so upset.
Not because Oldman's Sirius character had been killed off.
Because I hadn't got to that bit, so I didn't know who it was. I was thinking, I cannot believe he's just come in here without even asking if people knew yet and ruined it. I remember going back to the dressing room and saying to my mum, Gary Oldman just told me that he's the one that's killed, that Sirius is the one that's killed in the book. And my mum just saying, I know, but you'll never forget that that's how you found out and that Gary Oldman was the one that told you. And now I see him in so many films and I'm like, I never forget that you did a spoiler. Gary Oldman does spoilers.
And that wasn't the only time Mr. Oldman caused a kerfuffle.
We were filming Gary Oldman for the Sirius Black poster. It was just a green screen shoot to put him into the poster later on, basically. And Alfonso was trying to get a performance out of him and wanted him to get really angry. So the two of them were shouting and being quite abusive to each other. But sadly, at the same time, a party of school children were being brought round in the background on their Make-A-Wish tour. And they were witnessing these two grown men swearing and shouting and screaming at each other. And I don't think it quite fit the idea of what the Harry Potter world was.
In fact, from shriveled, shrunken, dismembered heads, tormented dementors, and werewolves, the world of Harry Potter was becoming a nightmare. A sentiment shared by the team making the werewolf suit. This horrific hound had become less of a problem for Harry and more of one for the schedule.
I have nightmares about it.
It was supposed to be shot a lot earlier in the schedule, but because the people in the suits weren't ready, they were still having to rehearse. They kept delaying the schedule, kept pushing it down the line.
I think what they wanted to see and what they wanted to see of the performer was just out of reach of what could be delivered.
It was a bridge too far for a performer. They could wear the stilts, that was fine. They could wear the head, that was fine. They could wear the long fingers, that was fine. Put it all together. It was so restricting to the performers that it didn't work.
It was so hard to take it seriously.
The full power of this character was just being compromised by the practical challenge of doing it.
And Alfonso's style of filmmaking wasn't exactly helping either.
His style of filmmaking is challenging because he does rely on longer shots. He relies on very naturalistic camera movements.
Spent a week trying to film it before they decided this is not going to work.
And so that became an expensive pivot.
So that was a definite sort of bump towards the end of the schedule, late turnover, trying to fix something rather than perhaps doing it the right way from the beginning.
I sat back afterwards and I thought, yeah. And I wish now I sort of think I should have spoken up more.
Running out of time, Cuarón had an emergency on his hands, and the only option was to make the werewolf completely CG.
We kind of got a bit of a 911 call, and we had to do them digitally and do them as full CG characters. The frustration with that was it was late in the day, so the werewolf was a bit of a rush job.
Luckily,
Professor?
the state-of-the-art of visual effects had evolved, and now with the kind of tools we were relying on, it became more suited for Alfonso's filmmaking style.
The werewolves weren't the only figures changing form. As Tim Burke scrambled to perfect a digital hippogriff, werewolves, and a magic bus.
A little bit of CG in there when it squishes between the two red buses.
The squeeze was on visual effects, and the seams were becoming exposed.
Some of the shots where he's flying on Buckbeak, the lighting on Dan himself didn't quite match into the background plates, so he doesn't quite look like he's there. Just feels a little bit like a process shot, like he was on blue screen, which of course he was. Didn't quite work as well as we'd hoped. With all films, not everything gets finished to the level that you want, and there are always some great looking shots, and there are some shots that aren't quite as good as you want, but you run out of time, basically.
Warners could live with imperfections, but would audiences be happy to live with the darkest Harry Potter yet?
That's not possible.
As Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban premiered in May 2004, Warner Brothers waited anxiously to see how audiences would react to the first dark and mostly grown-up Harry Potter.
When we were doing it, I had questions in my mind about certain directions and things.
This is not at all how I envisioned it to be.
But when you saw it, I thought it was absolutely splendid.
I just love the story and I love the look of it.
There was no doubt Alfonso Cuarón had taken Harry Potter to a new and unexpected place.
Like the darkness, I really like that.
Just as each of J.K. Rowling's books had.
It felt like you were watching a different film franchise.
He was the right person in the right time.
It helped ensure that the franchise didn't get bland.
And Alfonso created just a movie that I think was transformative.
Harry Potter had come of age.
Then it started to mutate.
The Prisoner of Azkaban grossed nearly 800 million worldwide.
I know people really liked it because it was artistically different.
However, it's worth noting that for all its success, Cuarón did deviate ever so slightly from the books, and people noticed.
One of the reasons why I didn't like the third movie is I felt like they left out backstory of Sirius Black and his father's friendship and the history of the Marauders map. So the movie to me didn't make as much sense.
What's this rubbish? What's this rubbish, he says.
I think that's a really weird thing to balance. How much do you want to over-explain for people who don't know the books? How much do you want to under-explain for the people who do and don't want it repeated?
Well, for Alfonso Cuarón, there would be no more repeating, because after just the one movie...
Because the movie's not mine anymore, now it belongs to the audience.
He was done.
He moved on.
Whether it was Alfonso's decision.
They wanted to get other directors in, have their visions.
Cuarón wasn't the only departure. The custodians of Harry's big screen canon had reached a crossroads.
Either we choose to stay here for another 10 years, or we go home. The three of us talked about it. We thought, we did 3 really good movies. David was there. David now knew, how to manage a movie, I think, of these sizes, and they're in good hands. Let's go home and do something else.
Warner's had an even bigger problem.
When we were finishing the third movie, the cast had some doubts if they were going to come back.
The class of 2004 had several members who were ready to now leave school in order to go to school.
Really wasn't an easy decision. To stay doing tutoring at the studios meant that I wouldn't have been able to do a full range of exams that you would do in a English school system. This is a big thing, when you're 13, to be thinking of that.
We knew there was going to be 7 books. And at that point, the movies were popular enough that we pretty much knew there was going to be 7 movies.
And I think I just was like, I'm not 100% sure I want to do this.
Thanks to UK regulations, none of the adolescent cast could be confirmed for all 7 films in advance. Suddenly, Warner's had a commitment problem.
Dan, his parents weren't sure.
Daniel Radcliffe's father, Alan, who along with his wife had to be convinced to let their son become Harry Potter, was starting to ask questions.
His dad, Alan, had given up his job to look after Daniel, really, and he spent a lot of time with him, making sure he was where he was supposed to be.
But exactly where that was remained up in the air.
They really wanted him to go to school, regular school, and he wanted some time to go to regular school.
But Daniel Radcliffe wasn't a regular boy. In fact, by now, he was a household name.
All the media intrusion and stuff written in the papers.
Fame had caught up with the world's most famous wizard.
And Alan said, I just tell him not to read anything about himself. If it's negative and bad, it might upset you. And if it's positive and glowing, it might go to your head. So just keep your head down, do the job, and just enjoy yourself.
But whether he was enjoying himself was the question.
Best to leave wanting more than to be not enjoying it anymore.
After 6 years, 3 films, and more than $2.6 billion in box office receipts, Warner's was facing the prospect of having to go back to the drawing board.
And the studio at the time was like, well, what are we going to do? We'll have to recast Dan, and if anyone else leaves, we'll recast.